Mike, what are we going to talk about today?
What are we going to talk about today? What aren't we going to talk about today? I think is a better question.
I know we got to somehow fill up an hour, and I actually asked you to do this, so you were nice enough to come on, and I appreciate it. I've known you for a long time. I think I met you what? When did we meet? 2010? 20?
I was trying to think of that. So yeah, certainly I was at Higher Alliance. So I started there in 2011. So it was post 2011, but probably just after that.
Wow.
And I remember hearing your name, and I honestly thought your name was Toronto for a long time because Dave and Jay, the guys I work for at Higher Alliance, they referred to you constantly as Toronto, and I didn't even know you were a person. I thought they were talking about the city for the first 6 months. And at the time, you guys were constantly playing Words with Friends, and that's what I associated you with before I ever met you. You were the Words with Friends guy with Dave and Jay.
I'm still playing it. You know
And played it
what?
well, I bet.
I'm actually not bad. You know what's
Yeah.
crazy about what you just said is I was thinking of your name, Tentindo, and it's funny you bring up Toronto because I was going to say when you were a kid, did you just get the Nintendo BS?
Still, never mind when I was a kid.
Just
Yeah,
still, is it
always.
tired? Because I was Toronto.
Yep.
People like it was always Toronto. It still is, or Torino. I mean, it's six letters, but for whatever reason, it turned into the city or it turned into some mangled version of Toronto. So it's interesting.
Yep.
Toronto,
Yep.
though, it makes more sense. I could see you drawing that, whatever conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, yes, had to be 2011 when we first crossed paths, and you came in to do some of your wizardries, your sales training, which I absolutely loved and adored.
Yeah, well, I don't believe that at all. So,
Well, it's true.
so we reconnected, and for those that don't know, Mike, he is in the recruiting space. He's a talent acquisition professional. He has spent the better part of the last, I don't know how many years, sitting on site for a company, helping them hire technology professionals, correct?
For the most part, yep, yep,
Okay, and
yep. Tech, software, and really anything else that goes along with running a company, but primarily in tech. Yeah.
okay. Well, I asked you to come on here because right now you were part of the company. I know the company's going through we don't have to name them, but they're going through a tough time, and they transitioned out what 200 people or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And then you were part of that whole.
Yes, absolutely. And let me just correct you a little bit there, Dave, because I want to be fair to them. I don't know that it's true to say they're going through a tough time. They're just in an interesting position as a company, which I think every company will hit that spot. So I think financially they're doing really well. It was time to reorg, and they're moving some things around. So I don't think it's quite fair to say that they're doing not doing well. But yeah, they changed a lot of things around, and I think of the 900 or so employees we had globally, they let 180 go, which is
Wow.
quite a blow. Yeah.
So you went from a position where you were helping people find work to now you're in a position where you're actually evaluating next steps in your career. And I know that when we talked off camera, you and I think we spoke last week or the week before, and you
Mhm.
had said to me, "Hey, I'm trying to decide what it is specifically that I want to do," and that's when I asked you if you'd be willing to come on here because many people that I know at this point, mid-career, are thinking the same things, and very few of them are willing to try something different. Most of them, if they're unhappy, they'll just stay and be unhappy, or they may leave and just go do the same job somewhere else. But
Mhm.
very few will just change. And I know you haven't decided one way or another what you're going to do. But I thought that it might be helpful for us to talk through what your process is. Now on the outside looking in, you get to redefine what it is that you may or may not do going forward. And I thought you just being able to offer some perspective about your process could be helpful to people.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start by saying it's been really eye opening because I said this to you before. I've never really had to look for a job in my life. I mean, I've to a certain degree I have, but for the most part, I've kind of gone from one thing to the other, even if it was, like you said, a complete career shift or change, or if it was just the next natural thing. It was never really something I had to sit down and think about and strategize about. It always kind of happened organically, and this time is different. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because, as you were talking there a second, what I've learned about myself is I I have tended to stay too long at the dance in a few places, right? I've really only had, when you think about my career, I'll say 4 real jobs in my life, and I've got good longevity in each, and I'm proud of all 4. So I wouldn't go back and change any of it. But in more than one, probably 2, even 3 instances, I probably stayed a year or 2 too long at each one for various reasons, which we can get into if we have time.
Yeah.
But so this time is different in a couple of ways. This time, I was there at this company, TraceLink. I don't think it's any reason not to talk about them. Great company. Was there 7.5 years, and the last year was slow, and the layoffs were imminent. I think it made sense. If they hadn't laid me off in January, would I still be there? Well, absolutely. Would I be looking to leave? Probably. I don't know. I don't know, but probably I would. The question is, how serious about it would I be? Right.
Yeah.
And to your point, would I just stay there and be comfortable, or would I challenge myself? Like, I'd like to think I would. But the market's tough right now. So, if this didn't force my hand to get out there and have these conversations and to do this job, and because that's really what it is, this is a full-time job. I don't know if I would have done it or done it well. So that decision-making process, or if I would have had the chance to make a change, I'm not sure how that would have gone. So I'm looking at this as a positive thing. I think, again, this kind of forced me into growth, right? And I'm looking at this as a great growth opportunity. I'm fortunate enough to have some time here to figure it out. The clock's ticking, certainly. But yeah, so that's where my head is at. I forget what your question even was, Dave, but did I hit it a little bit?
No. I think I don't even remember my questions. They come out of my mouth. I forget them about 7 seconds into you talking. No, you answered my question. But going back to, you knew that you probably were staying too long at a couple of them. I don't think that's unusual. I think that's actually
Right.
the norm, where something starts to feel, I don't know, stagnant. Maybe you're bored. Maybe, I don't know. Like that tends to be the situation. As a former recruiter in the space, I listened and listened to a lot of people tell me their stories, and I even in my role right now, I listen to people tell me their stories, and a lot of them are stagnating. They're doing work that they can do. It just doesn't challenge them anymore, or they report to somebody that they feel like isn't focused on their growth. Maybe they just don't want to do the work anymore, and they don't know how to leave because they don't know what else to do. So,
Yeah.
and you probably have seen that a ton. I mean, given the fact that you've recruited, my guess is by now maybe thousands of people in your career, but let's just say in the high hundreds.
Sure.
You're always talking to people that are looking or wanting an interview, and so you're always on that side of the desk. What is it like as you're going through it? Do you put yourself on pause and not think, well, I got to start thinking about my own career in this way? And I know that you said, hey, I'm kind of thankful that they made that decision because now it forces me to get into that place. I mean, how did that all transpire? Like what clicked in your mind?
Yeah. So I think, as I mentioned, this past year, 2024 at TraceLink was a slow hiring year. We all knew that was going to be the case. But no one really knew what that meant, right? Sounds familiar, right, in the world, but no one really knew what that meant. So I knew to a certain degree that the writing was on the wall. At some point in the next 6, 12, 18 months, 24 months maybe, I was going to have to make a decision, or at least start a process, whatever that process might be. So that I knew, and then that was clear. And I think we kind of talked about that openly there, right? Like the people who were on my team working for me, my peers, even my boss, it was obvious, elephant in the room. But I think I was, and so to your point, like, at what point do I start to shift more focused onto me and my career versus everyone else around me? And I think I'm not wired that way. I'm always the person that's going to do the other stuff for others, whether I'm home or not home or at work or whatever. So I was always, the way I handled that, Dave, and it was, okay, I can kind of retract a little bit, and I can go and focus on me and really, refresh my resume, get out there, start doing more social media, refresh my LinkedIn page, and really start to have a coffee or 2 a week like I'm doing now. Or I can, I guess for lack of a better term, I'm a fixer. I'm like, I can fix this, right? I can make this work for us. I can pull my team together. I can start to find new work for us to do. I can create new avenues and new value for the company that we're not providing now, but we can. So that's the way my mind worked. And I went into that mode to say, we're going to save this, right? My team's going to be safe. I'm going to be safe. I'm going to show everyone around me that we can do a whole bunch more that this company needs. And I put a ton of energy and effort into that. And that's what the last year looked like for me and my team while I was there, which I loved. I mean, don't get me, I don't have any regrets about it. I think it was really good and it was great stuff and it was resume building stuff for me. But that's the way I looked at it. And then, really only 2 weeks before the layoffs were official is when I got the word that, this is happening. Your position's been eliminated. And then it became real, and then it was like, oh, all right. And then I think a lot of people, and I might be going a different direction here, but I'll say this because I'm feeling this too. I see a lot of my friends and family are in the same position that I am, people on LinkedIn and Facebook and all that stuff. I think it's very easy at that point to get very defensive or to get hurt, right? To get emotional. And I don't think I did that. I really don't. I mean, I never once thought everything I just put into this company, why are they not appreciative? I never felt slighted. I never felt like I was wronged in any way. And I think a lot of people do. And that's okay. Like, I think that's a rational, reasonable response for humans. I think blessed to not feel that way for whatever reason, and I think the company did really, really, really good by all of us. So we were treated very well. So I was lucky to not have to go through that period of whatever that stage of grief or whatever it is, right? Where I was angry. I didn't get there. I never went there, but what I did do was just take some time, and it took 6 weeks and did really nothing professionally and just hung out with the kids. And I tried to get healthy and started a new exercise regime and then just, started to have these conversations. So that's the way I handled it.
Yeah, and I wonder if part of that comes from the fact that you've recruited for a number of companies over the years as a staffing person, then as an on-site person. So you probably have some perspective as to when this kind of stuff may or may not happen. Like, for example, if you work in an industry or for a company, or you support companies that are in acquisition mode or merger mode, most likely there are going to be, reasons to hire and reasons to lay off. Or if that sales are down, or if there's redundancy in the company, you have that perspective as, say, a recruiter.
Sure.
You'll be able to anticipate, okay, this is likely to happen. But a lot of people, they go to work and they have no idea how a company even operates or why a layoff may or may not come. So I think they may be more susceptible to that emotional reaction because they're not necessarily thinking about how a business runs or how a business makes money or loses money.
Sure.
You may have an advantage there. I could be wrong, but that's my thought.
No, I think you're probably right in that, and I try to remember that maybe I do have a little bit more peek behind the curtain than most. And I'll give you a real world example. My wife, who is a nurse, and she's worked at the same hospital for 1,000 years, and everyone there has been there 1,000 years. And when someone gets let,
that's a long
time. It is a long time. Yeah, she's only 42, 44. I don't know, but anyway, yes. And she's still the kid there too, which is the crazy thing, right? So, but my point is different worlds. So like when something happens in that environment, like a layoff or someone quits or whatever, it's a big deal because it doesn't happen and they don't see it coming. And I appreciate that. So I think you're right.
Yeah. So here's what I want to get into, because now I think you have a huge opportunity. As you were talking, I was thinking about my own career, and there were times, I think the most angst I ever had as an employee anywhere was when I was doing really, really well. And I was just like fit to be tied. And because I was really, really good at a specific job, but I couldn't see myself doing that job for 5 or 10 more years. So the money was coming in, I was really good at it, and I was miserable at the same time because I knew deep down I don't want to do it forever. So my thought was always, what the hell am I going to do if I leave this or if it goes away? What specifically can I do? And I was always trapped earlier in my career around the job or the industry. And I always was trapped by, I have to go now do this somewhere else. And I never wanted to do that. So it wasn't until I started to talk to other people that helped me see what it was that I might be able to bring to the table, other skill sets that could translate into different career paths or different responsibilities. Because I just remember not being able to see those things on my own. And so there's a couple of things. You had sent me some notes before we even started this conversation, just some directions that we could take it. But one of them was, talking to people. But I don't know what order you want to actually go in, but curious to see if you have a comment on what I just said. Have you relied on other people to help you see maybe what you don't see in your skill set or your career trajectory? And if you want to answer that, great. And if not, is there anything else that you sent to me that you want to start with? Because I don't want to go in the wrong order here.
No, don't worry about the order. Let's just let's just talk. So as I was listening to you just say, how you have in your career at one point felt stuck, or I forget exactly how you phrased it, when you were being very successful. That's interesting to me. And I was thinking about, have I ever felt that way and why? And certainly I have. So I guess I have a question for you regarding to that. What causes that angst? So for me, I'll be honest and I'll be open here and say, I've been there where it's like there's lots of factors at home that might dictate or might affect the way you feel about that, right? So, for instance, I think every job I've ever had, I've at some point gotten bored, right? Where I can figure it out, I can do it really well, I can be successful, quote unquote, and have my bosses and my ownership be happy with me. That's always happened, yep. Right? Knock on wood.
Yep.
And at some point, that's not enough, and you look for other things, but for me, and maybe this is head trash, and you're the best at calling me out on my head trash, there's always a reason not to take a risk, right? And I think that risk aversion, I've been there, and right now I'm dealing with this too, right? So to be perfectly honest, I've got two kids who one's about to go to college, one is about to go to high school.
Yeah.
So there are very real financial things at work here. So it becomes, for me, again, going back to if I wasn't laid off in January, would I have just put my head down and been somewhat bored and somewhat frustrated and somewhat unmotivated for the next 3 to 5 years if it paid the bills? And would that have been okay or not? Right. And I think we both know wouldn't have been ideal. I wouldn't have been happy. Right. And then you have to think about, like, what does success really mean? And does that matter? But so yeah, I think that's huge. And I think to your earlier point, like, I think everyone wrestles with this at some point. And I can't remember a time when I really wasn't wrestling with that. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
No. Well, it's not really about me. I just remember on the weekends when Chrissy and I would go, the boys were babies. My daughter wasn't even really born yet. And we would go out and whatever, we'd be driving around. And even though I was doing well, I would occupy her time with, what the hell am I going to do with my career? Where is this going? And she would always say, what's wrong with what you're doing? I'm like, I'm freaking bored. I'm making a lot of money to do nothing. And I hate to say it that way, but it wasn't interesting. And I was in the IT space, but I didn't have an ounce of interest in the technology or the types of the specific skill sets that I was helping find work, or the companies that I liked the people. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed meeting the different personalities, but the work was I can't even tell you, I was so bored by it. And so, but the money was a challenge because I got paid a lot of money to do what I thought was very simple work. And I was dying inside because I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that to you. So, So I think for the rest of ever since then, I've spent my time undoing stuff. Let me let go of this thing that feels stagnant. Like even today, I'll walk away from clients or nicely say goodbye to clients, sometimes not as nicely, but mostly nicely, when I start to get bored or I start to feel like there's no growth here for them. Like even if the money's there for me, I will subtly back away because I don't see it. It's not doing me any good. I don't feel energy from it. I don't get better for doing it. I just get money for doing it. And so I've got 3 kids too. So I know the feeling. The thing I'll say to you though is every time I let go of something, something else comes right in its place. And I end up attracting something that's more interesting. So
Right.
again, most people will say that's stupid. You should just stay with what you got. I mean, you got, it's secure over here, but I don't view it that way. I view it as I'm stagnating here. I need to go do something else. And I've
Yeah.
probably been that way for maybe 15, 16 years now.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting. I think I strive to be more like that. And I think I'm getting better at it. So like that, it's scary, right? And I think you're one of the best I know at it. At least you're the best at talking about it.
Yeah,
Right.
well, it's all talk. It's all talk.
Yeah. Right. It's all fabricated. It's
Yeah,
completely
totally
false.
fabricated. Yeah.
But if it weren't, I would say that it's ballsy, right? And I think you've got a tremendous amount of trust in yourself, which I think I need to have more of, and I think most people need to have more of, right? So it seems risky, but at the same time, like you said, if you trust in the fact that what you do day to day and the way you run your life and have your conversations, that, like you said, that next best thing is going to come. But I think a lot of people don't trust that, or maybe they shouldn't because they don't do the right things, right? you
Well,
know?
just to build on what you're saying, this conversation piece,
Yeah.
you and I have talked about this God knows how many times over the
Yep.
years. But that alone doesn't happen enough with people. And so
Right.
if you're not talking enough to other people and you're not learning or growing or developing yourself, you will sit in a place of I have no idea. I don't have any answers. I don't know what to think. I don't know anybody. But you had said to me that you're working on having your conversations. What is it about the
Yeah.
conversations that are helping you trust yourself or learn
Yeah.
about yourself?
Yeah. I think it's everything. So, and there's a bunch of different things, various levels that I'm experiencing. And, these are things that, again, to your point, you and I have talked about this since I've known you, 10 or whatever, how many years. But you forget about it, right? Like, unless you're doing it every day, which I know you do, and it's easy to get away from it. But now that I'm back in it, like, it's now my full-time job, right? Like, I've given myself a goal of like 3 conversations a week. I don't care what they look like, who they're with, but getting out, whether it's coffee or a Zoom or whatever, and doing at least 3 a week. I guess your question is like, what does that do for you? So it does a whole bunch. The first thing it does for me, and I said this to you before we started recording, was it gives me energy. Like, I can have a better day today having done this, have a conversation with a real human being about things that matter in the world. The rest of today is going to be better, and I know that, and I've seen that for the last 6 to 8 to 12 weeks that I've been doing this. So, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're not working and everything in your LinkedIn feed and everything in your Facebook feed and everything on CNN is negative,
Yeah.
it's really important, right? It really is. So that's the first thing it does. But now I'm actually starting to see some of this come to fruition, where it's like it's actually becoming real opportunity, right? Which I knew would happen. To our earlier point, like, I had to trust that would happen, because for the first 6 weeks of my being unemployed, I didn't do any of it, right? And I knew I didn't do anything, and I think part of me not doing any of it was I just didn't want to do it and then have it not work. Right. Because then what the hell was I going to do then? Right. If I'm putting in all this effort and having all those conversations and I'm still not getting anything, that was going to be terrifying for me. Right. And I think subconsciously that was what I was wrestling with a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. So once I got to that point where, okay, 6 weeks, I had a golf trip, I went out, I got back, I'm like, all right, this is it. We're doing it. We're updating it. We're putting the feelers out. We're updating our LinkedIn status. We're calling Dave Turano. We're calling our buddies. We're getting the word out. So since that's happened, it's slow going. We could talk about this ad nauseum, but I'll just tell you, I've applied to over 60 jobs, right, since I've been out of work. And I don't think I've gotten one response from an application, right? Other than thanks, but no thanks, just based on some AI algorithm with my keywords.
Yep.
But the traction I have now, I've got, and we can talk more in detail if you want, because I'm happy to share details, but I've got like 4 very real opportunities at early stages with people that have real jobs for me that I'm a good fit for, that I could potentially do well, that could potentially scratch my itch, like you and I are talking about, of something new and something challenging and something different, and yet still be successful. And they all came through conversations like this, 2 and 3 degrees removed. Not anything that I've applied to online or anything like that. So it's really encouraging. It's really energizing. It's really cool to see it come to fruition. And again, I'm not telling you anything we haven't already talked about for 15 years, but it works. It really does.
Let's build on that, because
Yeah.
I've never in my life applied for a job other than my first real job, which was in the 90s, back when,
Yep.
whatever.
You had to mail your application in?
Yeah, I think I sent something. It was an ad in the Boston Globe that I applied to, and then I was like an hour late for the interview, and I got yelled at when I got there. And then I worked there for 13 years. It was crazy. Anyway,
Okay.
but I haven't put a resume together, applied for a job, and it's coming up on almost 30 years, and
Yep.
I've never believed in the process. I think getting into the staffing business made me not believe in the job application process anymore, and I think a lot of that had to do with, as a salesperson in the space, I constantly went around the system. Whatever jobs were being posted or whatever HR was hiring for, I decided I'm gonna step over into this line. I don't want to stand in line with anybody else. I don't want to
Mhm.
wait for feedback with everybody else. I want to go find the people that really make the decisions. And I got myself in a lot of trouble, but I put loads of people to work.
Yep.
And that's what I tried to teach anybody on my team or any clients that I've had, is not to be totally disrespectful of a process or a system, but recognize that a lot of times this whole process that you're going through to get a job is totally broken, and
Mhm.
it's run by people that have no desire to really make it work any better. And with all due respect, that's what I observe. So I guess the reason I bring this up is you and I have talked about this for so long. You still applied to 60 jobs. You got
Mhm.
no feedback. And then you did this other thing over here, and you've got 4 opportunities that you now get to evaluate on your own terms. You're not in line with anybody else. You're having conversations that probably sound different than anybody else. Why did you go down that path? Or what stopped you from doing that in the first place? And then what have you realized again as a result of doing that? What are you seeing that's working?
Yeah. So I think as far as what stopped me from doing it in the first place, I think, like I said, it was just a fear of it not working. Like that was what my tried and true. Like that's my last resort. Like this is how. And I knew in my heart that's how I'm going to get a job. Everyone I talked to, my next door neighbor, he's been laid off twice in 4 years. He's like, you're not going to get a job by applying for it, and I knew that, right? So the 60 job applications was just like, okay, I'm going to do this because you kind of have to, right? I mean, you probably say you don't, but you just want to cover all your bases. So that was that, and I think honestly, I think it was good for me to experience it as a talent acquisition professional. It was good for me to put my feet in those shoes and experience what the job seeker seeks. And I've learned a lot, and I consider myself a pretty empathetic person. I am way more empathetic now than I was 6 weeks ago with what the average job seeker deals with a talent acquisition process. To your point, it is a disaster. So maybe I'll learn something from that when and if I get another job.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can be better. Um, but yes, as far as
Well, the
what,
connecting, build it around you were talking to me about just connecting and
yeah,
reciprocity and all that stuff. Like, how does that tie into it? I know what you're talking about, but
right,
a lot of people don't know what connecting really is, and they have no clue what reciprocity is. That conceptually they get it, but they don't know
yeah,
what it's like in action when they're in job seeking mode.
right, yeah. So I said the word trust a while ago too, and I think it comes back to that. So I think the biggest thing that I can do is, like I said, have these conversations, meet with people, whether it's reaching out to someone that I was a client of mine back at Higher Alliance in 2012 or 15 or whatever, who hopefully I've kept in touch with to some degree, which I think I'm decent at. So whether it's, pinging that person to say, hey, do you have time for a coffee or whatever, um, trusting that those conversations are going to be valuable for both me and that person, and not anything more than that. Right, like it doesn't have to be a job, it doesn't have to be anything um, that's substantial in the moment, but you just got to trust that it's going to come back to you in spades down the road, right? And I think to your point, Dave, a lot of people aren't wired that way, or they just don't they just don't believe it to that degree because they haven't seen it. To your earlier point, they haven't seen it firsthand like you and I have so many times.
Right.
So, putting myself in someone's shoes, like if I was 6 years out of college and I've had one job and now I'm laid off, what would I do? What would I try? What would my plan be here to get rehired? It might take me a while to figure out or to talk to someone like you or to like me to say, here's what you need to do. Like, just go and have conversations with anyone under the sun and trust that it's gonna come back. It's gonna make sense. It's gonna be a valuable thing for you both down the road. And the down the road piece is the key, right? Yeah. It can't be something you're looking for a return on tomorrow. It has to be a very, very long-term return.
You would also talk to me about getting feedback from people. So when you're having these conversations, it's not always because you want something. You're just having the conversations. Are some of those to get candid feedback about you as a person or as a professional? Like, what do you mean by feedback, and how do you bring that up?
Yeah. So I think a guy that I know here in town who's a very good friend of mine, went to kindergarten with him. We served on the Little League board and together, and he's a really good dude. I like him a lot. And he said to me one day, forget why we were talking about it. He said, we need to poll the parents because feedback is a gift. And that sentence, I wrote it down. Feedback is a gift. And I credit him every time I say it. His name is Joe Lango, great guy. So feedback is a gift. So, and I try to live by that, right? So it's easy for me to do it, I think, in a professional setting, admittedly, and it's very hard for me to do at home. So I don't ask my wife and my kids enough for feedback, which I think I could do. We could all be better at. But in the professional world, I think I'm really good at it. And so I'll give you an example. Before I left TraceLink, end of last year, I wanted to get feedback. I wanted to understand the way the business and my colleagues, my peers, my direct reports thought of me, because I've done that in prior jobs, and it's eye-opening. And I've actually helped people do it at TraceLink as well, who've come to me to do it. So I went to our L&D guy, who's a good friend of mine, and I said, do we have a process by which we could do a 360 review? Because I'd never heard of anybody doing one there. And he's like, we absolutely have a process. We have a tool. We pay for it. There's all these resources. No one ever does it. He's like, I'm like, well, can I get one? He's like, absolutely. So we did it. And just a quick version of the process. So it was like, he and I sat down together. I came up with a list of, it ended up being about 40 people at the company that I've had either very close relationships with or not so much, because I think there's value in that too. Yeah. At all levels. The CEO was involved, right? Our CFO, our COO, all the way down to admins that don't even really deal with me much, but I see in the hallways, right? Our IT support guy, whatever it was. Yeah. So again, long story short, we went through that process. It was a pretty in-depth 6-week process by which they got all this information. Then it went into a tool, and I got this 25-page report spit out. And the first 15 pages of that report, I actually have it somewhere here, was like all bar graphs, right? It's all colors and bars and numbers. And I'm like, this means nothing to me. And then you got to the last 10 pages, which was the comments, right? And I was absolutely geeking out. And it wasn't all positive. And a lot of it was, but it was like absolute gold to me. And I absolutely love it. And I've actually gone so far as to send it to some people that I've been trying to interview with, to say, I have this, like, here's me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but like, this is what people are saying about me. It's kind of like a reference without doing a reference. Yeah. So I absolutely love the process. I think it's a shame that more people don't do it. At least I don't hear about people doing it, but it's so great. Like, for me, it was therapy. Like, it's therapeutic. It affirmed what I thought I was doing well. So that was nice. It also shed some light on a few things that there were a few surprises, I guess, that I said, oh, really? Like, someone felt that way? Oh, interesting. And then I started to ask people, around me, does this ring true to you? Like, and I pull someone that I very much trust and say, hey, I got this feedback from someone. I don't know who it was. It's all anonymous. But why do you think someone would say this about me? And I trust you. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Like, really, I want to know. Like, I want to be better at it. And the people that I trust to do that loved it. They loved the fact that I was not only trusting them to be honest with me, but that I was actually asking for help. Yeah. So I think that's huge. So that 360 look into my world was huge. And honestly too, Dave, a lot of the feedback I got, both positive and negative, wasn't just about my professional life. It was very, very much just me as a person too.
What was
So,
what was the best compliment you got, and then what was the most jarring feedback you got?
oh, I got quite a few compliments around, well, leadership and just trust, I think, which is everything to me. I mean, I've said it 15 times here in this 40 minutes we've been talking, right? But it really does mean the world, right? And I think when not to go off on a tangent, but when I a few times in my life have done something wrong, inadvertently or advertently, and it's broken trust. Those are the times I feel the worst.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the absolute times when I feel the worst, and that keeps me up at night. So the comments I got about, man, Mike is a trusted someone I really trust. Like I haven't done a ton of work with him, but I know that if I have a problem or if I just need someone to talk to, or I go to him, or he's the go-to guy on that. And no questions asked. So that felt really nice. I think a lot of the stuff that I heard about that like management, because I'm relatively new to people management.
Mhm.
And still kind of flexing those muscles and learning a lot about it. So it was nice to get some of that as well. The most jarring comments or the most surprising things were, well, I'll say two. One was, so I was managing a team globally, and there was a couple of pieces of feedback. More than one person, less than three, said, we know he has a global team, and we see a lot of the people that he works with or report or directs in the US, but a lot of his global team, they don't seem to be included in a lot of things, which I don't think is accurate. But if the perception is there, then the perception is there.
Yeah.
So that was very eye-opening for me to understand, okay, maybe I'm not as good as a remote leader as I thought I was.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think in person I was doing a really good job according to feedback, but the remote piece of it, the Zoom piece of it, I maybe wasn't doing as well, which makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that. And then let's see what else.
You said there were two things that you thought were a little bit.
Yeah, I think the other thing was, and this is a growth point for me. A couple of people mentioned that I seem to get, and this goes back to what you and I were talking about as far as getting bored or getting aggravated with things. I think I was starting to show that in meetings and conversations. And I think that was starting to peek its head out a little bit, especially with some of the higher ups, like the leaders or my direct managers or et cetera. Not in a non-professional way, but enough to raise an eyebrow of people that might be in the room.
Yeah.
And I think that was really important for me to understand too.
Yeah.
To say, okay, maybe I need to calm down a little bit. But at the same time, those same people were saying, well, but we get why he's doing it, and we want him to continue. Like maybe he can be more tactful with some of the comments, but we actually want to see him try and change the way things are.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. What about you were right before we hit the record button, you were talking to me about decision making.
Yeah.
And career pivots and changes and all that. What's going through your head as it relates to that as you consider next steps? Like what is it about decision making that you think people should know?
Yeah. Well, I think decision making is key. So if as I'm in my seat as director of talent acquisition, or prior to that as the leader on Higher Alliance's team, or wherever I end up going, I think that's one of the key things that I've seen in my little lens of the world and my 3 or 4 experiences in corporate America. I think the decision-making process is really bad in most places, right? I haven't, and I'm sure there are great leaders out there that have a great decision-making process that trust people and trust processes to do that. I haven't seen one yet. So, and it extends beyond corporate. I mean, it extends into the volunteer work I do, or just the way people operate around their house. So I think, the decision-making process for the most part, again, what I've seen in corporate America is it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, I think we just need to kind of back up and say, like, what are we trying to achieve here? And then what are the steps we need to take to do it well? And just make sure that makes sense at the end of the day. But I said to you earlier, like, I feel like right now in the world, and this is just me kind of talking about my own personal perceptions right now as a job seeker and someone out in the world probably spending way too much time looking at LinkedIn and looking at Facebook and CNN. But it feels like the decisions we're making or I'm making right now are incredibly important. Like there's a lot of weight to everything. The world just seems heavy, right? A lot on our shoulders these days. So, I think that's a piece of things, but it's not a reason not to make the tough decisions. So I think, we've got to kind of push on that.
Yeah, probably easier said than done. I did
Right.
on Friday, I did a leadership workshop, and decision making was one of the two topics we covered on Friday.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of stuff we have in there, but for me, I think we have to understand why we would even make a decision in the first place. And there's so many reasons to make decisions and parts of your life where you have to make decisions. But one of the biggest challenges that people and organizations have is they sit in a place of indecision. They don't do anything. And then that's when you start to really tinker with your energy and your motivation, and all these other things can be impacted when you sit in a place of indecision. And a lot of that is, to your point, there's maybe there's a lack of alignment, or there's no clear direction as to why you're doing anything, what the company's all about, where it's going, why it's going there. And there's a disconnect between that and maybe the job somebody's doing. But the other part to that is sometimes decisions aren't made because there's no clarity around, say, values, or you never really think about what it is what do I value as a person? And so if something is outside of those values, I would think if I'm clear on what I value, it's easy to make decisions. Because if I value, being fair and honest, and you're a thief, it would be easy for me to say, Mike, we're not hanging out anymore. And it wouldn't be because of you, it'd be because you steal stuff. As long as you steal stuff, we're not hanging out, and I can still be respectful to you. Or the same thing with the job. It's like if I value growth and opportunity and creativity and collaboration, and the company is stagnant and complacent and punitive and top-down management, it would be easy for me to say, I'm totally misaligned with these things. We don't value the same stuff. I'm going to decide to leave.
Right.
But going back to what we talked about earlier, I think that people, because they're not necessarily clear on those things, will sit in a place of hope and wait and let's see if things change, or I don't know what else to do, so I'll just camp here. And then as a result of that, they, like you said earlier, you may stay too long. Your skills erode, your motivations erode, your desire to grow erodes. And sometimes if you wait too long, you're not bringing, the best version. I can't stand that phrase, but you're not bringing the best version, the highest and best version of you to that next opportunity. You're bringing a nicked up, banged up, tired, demoralized version of you to whatever it is that you think you want. And so I think decision making becomes easier when we're clearer about who we are, what we value, what we want, and what we don't want. And then hopefully aligning those things with an organization or a client or a partner that shares those same things. I'm kind of off here. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So, So bringing this back to like myself and where I'm at right now in my little world, sitting at this desk here in Wilmington with some possible opportunities in front of me, and to your question about decision making, that's what I'm wrestling with, right? Like I'm sitting here saying, like I said, I've got a couple of kids about to go to college. We've got real world priorities and bills and things being pulled in different ways. But at the same time, I know in my heart of hearts what I want to do and what I don't want to do. Right. And maybe I didn't know that 2 months ago, but I think I do now. And there's a lot of variation on that though, right? That's not a black and white thing. There's a lot of gray areas too. Okay, if I can do this, then I wouldn't mind doing that. Or if I could do this, then I'd take less money, or all of those things. So that's the mental gymnastics I'm doing right now to say, I'm playing the hypotheticals, right? If I were to get an offer from this company next week, what would my concerns be? Would I take it on the spot? Or would I want to see these other things through, and why?
Hmm.
And would that be smart, right? At the end of the day, because again, real world problems, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know the answers to that other than I think the best thing to do is just to talk about it like this, right? And not be alone with those things, right?
Yeah, well, you were also talking to me about trusted advisors and people that help you get there, and I want to get your take on this too. But
Sure.
you know, for me, and I don't know if this will help you or run counter, but for me, it all comes down to the people. And if I think of all the clients that I've had over the years, or the places that I've worked over the years, where I've been most happy is when I feel most connected to the people. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
when I worked in the supermarket business, when I felt connected to my colleagues, I loved putting bacon in the case. I loved pricing the salami or the bologna or the chicken or the steaks and putting. I loved it. But when I
Yep.
didn't feel connected to my colleagues, I couldn't stand the job. It was the same thing in
Right.
staffing. It's the same thing in my own business. The only advantage I have now is I get to pick my clients. I get to
Right.
decide my schedule. But if my clients aren't aligned, if I don't feel aligned with the people, I don't want to work with them. And I get to say, I'm not working with you. And they get to say that to me too. But to me, I think that it comes down, first and foremost, it comes down to the people. I want to feel good around the people, and I want them to feel good around me. How much does that, more so than money, more so than titles, more so than any of it? If I don't feel
Right.
good about the people, I really don't care about the other stuff. Where are you at with that?
Well, I couldn't agree more, but at the same time, I'm a little bit cautious of that too, because that could be a negative too, right? Because some people will stay at a company or go to a company just based on that and just have fun. But really, maybe they shouldn't be. I can speak from experience, right? So, not to, I don't mean to discount your point because I couldn't agree more. I think people, it's everything, right? It's 90% of why, so all things being equal, I couldn't agree more. But at the same time, you've got to be careful of staying or going somewhere solely for the people where the rest of it might not make sense. So there might be some red flags that you ignore because you have just so much damn fun with these folks out at lunch. Right.
Well,
So, and I don't think that's what you're saying, Dave. I get
no,
that. But
no,
like,
no, no, no. No, I get your point. I mean, from the
yeah,
perspective of we value the same things. Like I value sense of
right.
urgency. I value the candid truth. I value people that push me to be better.
Yep.
I value people that are curious. I value people that are they're trying to grow. And so when I'm not around that, I don't want to be around the person. Like I don't want to be around
Right.
people that are stagnant. I don't want to be around people that don't ask questions. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to be around people that complain about other people. So in that way, I look at it as I'm gonna die with this group if I go there, even if the money's great, and I'm gonna thrive over here because
Mm-hmm.
what I value is that forward part. Now, if I'm looking to get complacent, or if I'm looking to go to lunch and have beers, I'm not doing myself any favors, but I'm not wired
Right.
that way. But I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
we're saying the same things for different reasons. But
Oh, I think we are, and I think that the word that comes to my mind, and to your point about hating certain phrases, the word I have two phrases I absolutely hate in the TA space is that's work life balance and culture.
ah,
Those are my two. I can't stand either of them. But I think what we're both talking about here is the culture of the organization,
yeah,
right? That's really what it is. So
right.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's what the people define. And so like as I'm going forward into the next 2 weeks now of having these conversations with these companies that hopefully will come to fruition, that's what I'm evaluating on is, a couple of them are small, right? They're 200, 300 employees. One's even less than 50. So, the people's everything, right? If I can't get along with the CEO and if the CEO is not going to at least listen to his people, then I don't want to be there. That I know
Right.
that I absolutely know, and that's a non-starter for me. But if that's there, then the rest usually will take care of itself.
Tell me real quick about your trusted advisors, and is that something that other people should be creating for themselves as well? Is it important to have trusted advisors? And if so, what kind of qualities do you look for in those people?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll say that I strive to be a trusted advisor to anybody. That's something that I actually gets me out of bed in the morning. I absolutely love it. It's, if I think there's one thing I could do for my kids, the kids I coach, the people I work with, it would be that. But yeah, I'm thinking about my list of trusted advisors, and it's a pretty long one, and they come from all walks of life, right? So I've actually gone so far as to, not recently, but in years past, I've been bored and sitting and watching a game on TV or whatever, and I've actually written down what I call a list of my people, right? And you're on that list, Dave, and so Dave and Jay are on that list. My next door neighbor's on that list. My wife is on that list, and it's a long list. There's people that I've worked with in every one of my jobs that I've come away with, that are on that list. People that I've grown up with. So yeah, I mean, to me, it's everything. Like it's literally everything. And when you're laid off, when you're in the position I'm in, that's your starting point. Like you pull that list up in your head or wherever you have it, and you just start talking to those people first, and then the rest, and then that snowball. So I think it's everything. And so what I think your question was like, what do those people possess? I guess you just, you know it when you see it, but I think it's a genuineness. It's an authenticity. It's, you don't question their motives ever. Like they're just going to be there because they're there. Like they're not looking for anything in return. So those are the folks, and they'll tell you the truth, right? To a certain degree, they'll tell you you're wrong. You need someone, lots of people to be able to tell you that. So, yeah.
Do you, what gets some, like, I would assume the opposite, but I'm curious, like, do you have people that just, that person's not going to make the list? Like there's reasons, there's clear cut, and do you eliminate them from your connections? I'm curious.
No. So yes, there's people that are never going to be a trusted advisor for me on most things, but they might be on something. Like I'm never going to completely dismiss a person.
Yep.
Ever. I mean, it would take a pretty egregious, and it could happen, granted, right? Yeah. But for the most part, I like to be around people that I disagree with to certain degrees. And that person might, like I said, I may not come to them for job advice or to talk politics or whatever, but they may have some expertise or knowledge that I value, and vice versa. So I would never dismiss someone just out of hand for that.
Yeah. So you're going to hate me because I'll scrub my LinkedIn connections, not to eliminate people as people, but I'm always churning it. I'll remove connections, not as a punishment, but more as I don't feel like I'm adding any value here, or I don't want to spend any more time here. I don't feel a connection in return. And I try to tighten it. And every time I do that, more connections come in. And so the quality of what's left is even stronger. And I've done that for years. I've probably, I don't know how many, it's been a couple thousand I've eliminated. And it's not a punishment. It's more, I feel more connected here. I'm learning more here. I'm growing more here. I'm adding more value to these people. I don't feel like I'm adding any value here. I don't feel the connection anymore. So again, this is not a popular practice for a lot of people. I was just interested to see if you've ever
Yeah, and you're talking specifically about LinkedIn connections, or just connections. Yeah, LinkedIn. I get that. Yeah, and that's probably another whole podcast on what LinkedIn is and isn't, and what it's become and where it's going. But I won't go down that road because I think it's weird now, and maybe it is.
It's getting a little strange, and that probably has something to do with it. It feels like it's more of a marketing tool. I'm solicited a lot more on it today than I ever was. It doesn't feel like the same community. In my life, in my contacts, all those people are all still in my contacts. But from a LinkedIn perspective, I've definitely scrubbed them. What about there was one more thing, just about being outside the box that you referenced to me before we even started talking? Like what do you think people should do in terms of, what does outside the box mean when it comes to thinking about a career or a mid-career change, or where you're at right now? What are some of those things you got to be thinking from an outside the box perspective?
As far as like keeping your mind open to maybe something you weren't thinking about doing? Yeah. I think I'm trying to be there, right? Because I think what I learned about myself in my 7+ years at TraceLink is one of our key pillars, one of our key values there as a company was innovation. And when I heard that the first time, like, okay, whatever, like, they're going to build cool software, like that's innovation. But no, it's innovation of thought. It's getting outside of the way. And we all go through these, these personality tests and all that sort of stuff, the HR,
Yeah.
tools. And one of we did it as a company, and mine came back as an innovator. So I have and I won't get too deep into the details here, but I have very little patience for people that don't want to try new things, for lack of just to oversimplify. So if there's, the tried and true way to do something that works okay, and then, we can look at something over here and say, let's completely blow that up. Let's just completely flip that upside down and do it completely different. And that's going to set us apart, for whatever we're trying to do. And let's just see what happens. Maybe it's a complete failure. Maybe it's a disaster. Maybe the place burns down, but let's just try it like that. I get excited about that. Right. So I struggle with people that don't. I can work with them certainly, but I've recognized that in myself. And so when someone doesn't think that way, it takes more energy for me. I have to recognize that we have to work harder together to communicate that. So there's that. But yeah, I think I'm at a point now where, like I said, I'm weighing the tried and true. Like, I could go do this. I know I can be successful at it. I've done it before. It's not that different from what I've done. There's a few things over here on this side that are completely off the wall that might be really cool, that might not be. And is this the right time to take that risk and chance? And maybe I don't like it. And what happens then, with the job search? So I don't know the answer to that. Like, I think I don't know enough yet about any of it to make an informed decision, but I'm really interested to try. So I will tell you this, like, the stuff over here, the crazy off the wall things, the stuff that was really going to challenge me and I might fail at, is the most exciting for sure.
Yeah.
So I just got to understand. And I think I have to get better also at talking to my family about that, because I keep this all in. Like, I keep this all between me and you because you get it, but my wife and my kids don't get it in my head. So I'm not going to bother them with this kind of conversation. I'm going to let them just think everything's cool. And I'm not going to, and that probably has the opposite effect on them. They're probably worried because I'm not talking to them. So I probably need to be better at that. But yeah, I love the outside the box thing. I really do. I think it's exciting.
Well, you're not just talking to me. This is going to be on YouTube and Apple and all that. So,
you're
talking to 8 billion people. I think I have 8 billion listeners now. It's somewhere around 8 billion or so.
I'm sure you do.
Hey, one last question. I think it'll be the last question. But you ever hear that concept of being in flow? You know what I'm talking about? Where just time passes and it doesn't feel like 3 hours feels like 3 minutes. A week feels like a day.
Sure.
When you're in flow, like, have you ever felt that at work, anywhere you've worked, and if so, what are you doing when you're in flow? Because the reason I ask is that's what I'd want to be doing wherever I went next, is how do I get to that place as fast as possible so I never feel like I'm working?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the answer is yes. When I'm in flow, and I think I've gotten to be in flow. I like the term. I've gotten in flow, I would say, in every job I've ever had, to in a certain window, at a certain point, I've been there probably multiple times. For me, it's when I'm collaborating, right? So that is so, and I prefer to do that in person, but this works too. So I don't mean to say I've got to be in a room with people, but I do love that. But when I'm most excited, what I get most excited about, and when I feel like the days fly by and I can't wait to pop out of bed and get back to the work I was doing the day before, is where I'm working on projects that are different, right? So I know that, okay, the company needs X. I'm going to pull people together from different teams that they don't work for me, I don't work for them, but I know them, I love them, I trust them, I can collaborate with them. Some easy, some not. But I'm going to pull a group of people together. Maybe I'm being pulled together, and we're going to get together and we're going to do a project. It might take 6 days. It might take 6 months. And at the end, we're going to see some sort of result. Again, might be good, might be bad, but I love that. I love that, working with people, dividing that up, and in the perfect world, we'd all be doing something that would help us grow. Mm-hmm. So like I said, at TraceInc in the last year, we didn't have a lot of hiring. That's what I started to do. I started to go to our HR business partner, our finance partner, and 3 or 4 of the business leaders and say, we need to do this. I'm going to put a meeting on the calendar. We're going to meet twice a month, and we're going to do who's in. and give me your ideas. And let's like that to me is awesome. I love that. And I love doing it outside of work too. So when I'm in my flow, I am collaborating with people. I am pulling people together from different disciplines, different walks of life and learning from them. That's nirvana for me.
Yeah, which is the opposite to what frustrates you with people is those that just don't want to try anything new. I think you said that. They're
Yeah.
not looking to change. They're not looking for new ideas. So those are the types of things I mean, like from a values perspective, as you're looking at whatever's next, it's how
Right.
often am I likely to be in flow there, and how
Right.
often am I going to be shoveling shit against the tide?
I know for sure I don't want to be anywhere where people say that's not my job and or where people are nervous about letting other people at that organization know that they don't have the answers.
Hmm.
Right, when they're coming at their job from a place of self-preservation or protection because they're nervous of whatever, fill in the blank, that is where things get stagnant or they screech to a halt.
Yep.
So I think that's key. I've learned that about myself in the last 15 years, right? So does that ring true for you, Dave?
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mean. Like when you're going through this process with these companies, what is it that you're looking for about those people? Are those people going to be in, camp A or camp B? In the
Right.
moment when the rubber meets the road and you're actually there on a call with them or physically on site with them, are they going to go into self-preservation mode? Are they going to go into collaboration mode? Are they energy people? Like those are the types of things that I would want to screen for during the interview process to make sure that I'm setting myself up for the best chance to be as good as I can be.
Right.
So it's just interesting to hear you go through this process, and I appreciate you taking the time because as you're going through the process, you're talking to me about it. So many people, they come on and they're already where they want to be, or they're pretending to be where they want to be, and it's easy to talk from that place. But you're in a state of flux, and the fact that you're talking about it allows other people to talk about it. There are so many people in a state of flux, and they're working and they don't do anything about it. So hopefully some of the stuff you shared with me today, Mike, is going to be helpful to them, and I appreciate it. Is there anything though that I didn't ask? Anything you want to, kind of tie this up with? And then lastly, is there a manner in which, is there a way that people that want to talk to you should talk to you if they want to reach out? Is there a best way to do that? So I'll let you finish.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So let me first say thank you for having me. This has been a blast. I love these conversations. I said it to you earlier. I could talk shop for days and not run out of things to talk about. So I really do enjoy this. I'm a novice rookie podcaster, so I hope this was good and usable.
Of course.
But I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I'm going to take this energy through the rest of my day and the rest of the week. So no, I think we covered a lot of ground. I think we were all over the place, which is exactly the way I thought we would be. So I'm glad actually. But no, I think we threw a lot out there. I think I would just say, just keep thinking about this stuff and keep it front of hand. And I think for me, it's just like you said, it's be vulnerable. Like keep talking to folks about this stuff. And like I said, I hope it helps somebody out there, like this conversation, right? I mean, and as far as connecting with people, I'm always happy to connect with everybody. LinkedIn, as much as I don't love it these days, it's probably the easiest way. So LinkedIn connections with a node, and heard you with Dave Turano on Cut Through the Noise, and would love to connect. I won't say no to any of those. And I got a lot of time on my hands right now, so I'd love to have conversations with anybody over the next few weeks, and go from there.
All right, I'll include that link in the show notes, and maybe
Yeah.
we can reconnect after you secure one of these gigs. It'll be interesting to see where you end up landing, and
Yeah,
maybe some lessons learned after the fact, I think would be pretty cool too.
sure. Sounds great. I appreciate it.
Awesome catching up with you, Mike.
You as well, Dave. Talk to you
Thanks
soon,
again.
bud.
You got
All
it.
right. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.